Thanks for joining us on your channel of choice at this time, Africa Independent Television Reality. Welcome to Focus Nigeria, your program that puts the searchlight on topical issues in the polity. My name is Benga Aruleba. Today, we are going to be seeking some legal education in this executive legislature face-off. As we are aware, the senators have voted to suspend action on any request from the executive. Among what has been put on hold now is the screening of 12 resident electoral commissioners and some executive positions. One that I remember quickly is that of Lanre Gbajabiamila as the DG of the National Lotteries Commission. That, in actual fact, sparked off the current row 3 days ago. The election timetable has kicked off. The continuous voter registration exercise is on, a very critical exercise on which the success of the 2019 general elections is hinged. Yes, this legislative filibustering is going on as if the senators will not be affected one way or the other. Anyway, so this morning we will be looking at legislative powers as it relates to so many things: appropriation, screening and confirmation of executive nominees, the power to conduct investigative hearings, the power to summon, and of course, the ongoing recall process as well. Barrister Jibrin Okutepa is a senior advocate of Nigeria, SAN. He will join me shortly for today's discourse. But let me quickly give you some snippets of some other developments. Former President Goodluck Jonathan has been summoned by the House of Representatives ad hoc committee probing details of the Malibu oil scandal. The Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice under Jonathan, Mohammed Adoke, who is at large and has been declared a fugitive from justice over the issue, has consistently maintained that he did all he did with the approval of President Jonathan. Mohammed Adoke and some others have been charged to court on the Malibu oil deal, but the former minister is not in the country. The chairman of the House ad hoc committee, Honorable Razak Atunwa, said the former president could choose to appear in person or he may send representatives if he also pleases.
Jonathan's name features in the proceedings initiated by the public prosecutor of Milan in Italy. 3. A UK court judgment in relation to an application to return part of the money restrained castigated the Jonathan administration as not having acted in the best interest of Nigeria in relation to the deal. Pursuant to the provisions of the Constitution, the committee has decided to request that former President Goodluck Jonathan give evidence to the committee as to his role in the matter.
All right, let's also tell you that all is set for Saturday's by-election to fill the Osun West Senatorial District made vacant by the death of Senator Isiaka Adeleke on April 23 this year. It's a straight fight between the PDP and the APC, although it's obvious that the APC is up against itself, really, because the PDP candidate, Ademola Adeleke, is the younger brother of the late Senator Isiaka. And he was a member of the APC up until about 3 weeks ago or so, but had to decamp from the APC to the PDP when it was obvious that the hawks in the APC would frustrate his bid to pick the party's ticket. But I will have more for you on the Osun by-election tomorrow, hopefully, because that's the only day we have before the election. Some facts that you need to know about the Osun West Senatorial District, really. Okay, let's prepare for our discussion this morning. It's an education and enlightenment series that we want to engage in. So be prepared for some education this morning on executive legislature relationship. We have put together a package. Is from proceedings of the Senate on Tuesday, and of course it will lead us to the discussions, by which time Barrister Okutepa will be here with me.
Yet another nominee from the federal government. I recall that at one time, a statement was issued by the same acting president that the Senate has no power to confirm outside the provision of the Constitution. So I really don't know whether now the acting president is changing his statement or his action by this letter.
Mr. President, in a civilian democracy, there is nothing like executive orders. Things are treated according to the provision of the Constitution. You don't wake up a day and say you've appointed somebody, maybe by an executive order. If the Constitution foresees that there can be acting persons, officers in government, in Department of Government, then it would have also given us clearly that there should be acting officers in government where the Senate fails to confirm a nominee.
If we are not able to stand and face these challenges, I think there will be a time when somebody will even tell you that you don't even have right to come to the National Assembly. So we have to, as a matter of this National Assembly, we must learn to stand and speak the truth no matter the blackmail.
Every act that specifies confirmation of any appointment is the law of the land. Nobody, not the president, not the vice president, not the Senate president, nobody has the right to avoid obeying that law. If you see here, this session, the Lottery Commission is not stated here. And if Lottery Commission is not stated here, EFCC is not stated here, because it's not a federal executive body. The Customs is not stated here, because it's not a federal executive body. But Section 154 says that the president shall appoint these persons, and then, of course, the Senate will confirm. It only means that the executive is aware that outside the provision of Section 153 of this Constitution, which is the establishment of federal executive bodies, the laws establishing these agencies, very clear, because they have been established by Act of National Assembly, and their provisions is that anybody that is so appointed shall be confirmed by the Senate. Why are they shying away from it?
And I want to say this. The leadership, if the leadership doesn't do anything on this matter, within 48 hours, we will move against leadership. I'm serious, and I'm serious about it. I am serious about it. We must make sure that all those who have rejected are not working.
Do suspend all issues relating to the confirmation of nominees from the executive until the issues of confirmation as contained in the Constitution and laws of the Federation is strictly adhered to. Those in favor of prayer 1 say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 2. The acting president must respect the Constitution and the laws enacted by the National Assembly as it relates to confirmation of appointments. Those in favor of prayer 2 say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 3. The acting president should immediately swear in the electoral resident commissioner confirmed by the Senate. Those in favor of prayer 3 say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. Nays have it. Prayer 4. The acting president should immediately respect the rejection of the nominees by the Senate. Those in favor of prayer 4 say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
The acting president is the person who is at the head of government now and to whom we assume that everything we say today will go to. But we have a serious problem in Nigeria today. We have nobody in Nigeria who is at the head of the government. And the procedure and all the laws in Nigeria state that you cannot have a vacuum. Today, the acting president is outside the country, and so there is a vacuum.
Malafa, your point of order.
I come under Order 53.4. A senator must confine his observations to the subject under discussion and may not introduce matter irrelevant thereto. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, it is a collective, it is an abuse of our sensibilities and the sensibilities of Nigeria
Nigerians everywhere to make the assertion that there is no head of government in Nigeria, and there is a vacuum in the leadership of Nigeria today. The Constitution is very, very clear. If the president is out of the country, the Constitution is clear as to who is the head of government. If the acting president is out of the country, wait, I have the floor. If the acting president, if the acting president, do your work, my friend. Keep quiet. If the acting president, for whatever reason, is not in the country or is not on the seat, for whatever reason, the Senate president is the next in the line of succession. And if the Senate president, keep quiet, my friend. You should desist. You should from making these unwarranted attacks on the government of APC.
Okay, the switch. You can sit down here.
There you have it. Some clips from the proceedings of Tuesday. If we have a country where the president is indisposed, the National Assembly is aware because he wrote to them that he's indisposed and is going for medical vacation, and followed the constitution by handing over to his deputy, who transmitted to acting president. So we have an acting president. The acting president left the country on an official assignment, went to attend an AU summit, African Union summit. And some people are saying there's vacancy. For whatever reason, if the acting president is not around, for whatever reason, it doesn't matter whether it's official, then there's vacancy. And so the Senate president is the next in line. He must take over. That's the situation we have in the country today, coming from senators. Anyway, Barrister Jibrin Okutepa is here with me. He's a senior advocate of Nigeria. Leonard, sir, good to see you.
Good morning, Nigerian. Good morning, Chubenga. I'm happy to see you too. And having watched the clip, I'm amazed. And it's sad and it's unfortunate that serious national issues of monumental importance can be trivialized on altar of political expediency and selfishness. It is sad. Coming from a distinguished chamber, the highest lawmaking organ, and you say because the acting president had gone on official assignment representing Nigeria, and you say there is vacuum, and so the insatiable appetite for the Senate president to become acting president is to be moved by a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria who swore to uphold Nigerian constitution. It is sad. But Nigerians are more enlightened now than hitherto. We are no longer docile. We can read in between the lines. We know what is going on. And I'm sure Nigerians at the appropriate time will react. We have seen and have read where some of these senators are finding it impossible to visit their constituencies because they are alienated from the people, with all respect, and so they don't feel the pinch of the shoes you wear. They don't go to the market you go, and so everything is rosy for them. And so there must be that insatiable appetite, if albeit unconstitutional, to say, because their leader is next in line in the order of protocol, so he must become president.
Let's actually get back to, I've conceptualized some of the issues, but let's start from the executive itself. Yesterday, something happened at the Federal Executive Council. The acting president presided, made some comments in reply to what happened in the Senate, only for a minister who's supposed to be a member of the federal cabinet to be dissociating both himself and the Federal Executive Council from what the head of government, is it de jure or de facto?
The acting president.
The acting president.
the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, commander-in-chief, is acting president.
Even if they didn't discuss it at the Federal Executive Council and the president spoke on it, is he not speaking as the head of government? Does it lie in the mouth of any minister to dissociate himself from whatever he said, whether or not they discuss it at the Federal Executive Council?
Well, Benga, Nigeria is such a funny country that apart from corruption, there appears to be something creeping into our body politics, which I call indiscipline. Because, and it is unfortunate that APC-led government is the opposition of itself. Otherwise, what the acting president said, a professor of law, a senior advocate of Nigeria, a well-respected expert of law in this country, was that, look, there are some appointments which by virtue of Section 171 of the Constitution ought not to go for Senate confirmation. And that he seems to be inclined with a view expressed by my learned friend, Femi Falana SAN, which view some of us also have held. That's a statement made by a professor of law, a senior advocate of Nigeria, and the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria
In
acting capacity. Now, I have not had the privilege to hear or see the honorable minister or the presidential aides, but what I read is that that statement was not discussed in Federal Executive Council.
Even if they don't
Even
discuss
if,
it.
with respect,
Yeah.
my view with respect, even if it was not so discussed, it will amount with respect to say a view expressed by the number one citizen in acting capacity is his personal opinion.
Would that be right?
Because that view must carry weight, it must be respected, it is a view expressed. It's equivalent to saying that once the president of the Nigerian Bar Association speaks, he's not speaking for the bar, he's speaking for himself, because the issues are not being discussed at NEC. We must respect institution. And the failure to respect institution is what is leading to this degeneration of indiscipline, where everybody wakes up to say what he wants to say, just like what you just saw in the clips you have played. When the issues was being discussed about confirmation or non-confirmation, the abdication of their constitutional duty or not, somebody smuggling something for purpose of selfish political interest. So we must be very careful in order not to hit the politics, because the ordinary people will suffer when there is violence, where there is acrimony, where there is all manner of behavior in this country. So we must be very careful.
Has the Attorney General acted rightly?
I am not in a position to judge, but I do not think it is right to say publicly that you are disagreeing with your boss. You have a channel to say so. I do not think it was right.
Okay. I said we are starting with the executive. We have 2 vacancies in the Federal Executive Council, because the Constitution contemplates that every state must be represented in the Federal Executive Council. Two states, for Kogi since last year, has not had the representation. Gombe since February this year has not had representation. The president forwarded 2 names for screening and confirmation. The Senate has done that, forwarded the names back to the executive after clearing them. Since March, they've not been sworn in. Isn't the executive culpable one way or the other on that?
Well, I am sad that this country does not respect its own constitution, either the executive or the legislature. They do not respect their provisions of their constitution, which is the ground norms. For instance, by virtue of Section 147 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended, there shall be a minister representing each state of the federation. It is unfortunate that my colleagues and the late very close friend, Ocholi James, died. And since Ocholi James died, it took government a lot of time and energy and in denial of the rights of the people of Kogi State to appoint a representative from Kogi to the Federal Executive Council. After a long time, they appointed somebody from that side. I think Professor Stephen Ocheni, who had been cleared and confirmed by the Senate. And it has taken almost 3 months or thereabout after the confirmation. And the man is meandering in the street doing nothing. And his state, where he was found worthy in character, in learning, and knowledge to represent, is unrepresented. For me, that is a gross constitutional insubordination on the part of the executive. What is stopping the acting president from swearing in these 2 ministers? Because the constitution contemplates that you cannot assume your office as a minister, as president, as governor, even as legislators, without subscribing to the oath of office and oath of allegiance, which is a constitutional requirement on the part to be played by the executive. And I was expecting, and I watched with great disappointment. The Senate never made that as part of its resolution or calling on the executive to obey a constitutional imperative of swearing and let Kogi and Gombe have members of Federal Executive Council representing them.
And these 2 states have senators in the National
Assembly.
Assembly.
These 2 states have 3 senators
each.
There are 6 senators from these states. They are busy massaging their ego and saying that executive has failed to obey resolution. By the way, what is a resolution? Resolution has no binding force of law.
That's the resolution of the parliament.
But it's a persuasive moral statement. If it doesn't have a foundation in law, it can be ignored. You cannot pass a resolution, for instance, to breach Nigeria Constitution. Executive will be perfectly justified to ignore it. So, rather than say, look, Mr. Acting President, we give you 48 hours to swear in these 2 ministers. Otherwise, we will proceed against you.
Because there will be foundation for that.
Because
really.
there will be foundation
in the
for
Constitution.
it. Because the Constitution says they must be sworn in.
Yeah, every state must.
Every state must have. Yeah. This state does not have. And so, it constitutes an impeachable offense. But not to say that you have appointed an acting person, and because we refuse to confirm, it's tantamount to rejection. We must not confuse confirmation with rejection. If I sent the name for you to confirm, and you say you will not confirm, that ends your job. And by Section 171 of the Constitution, the president has the constitutional prerogative to make acting appointment. And it does not lie in the mouth of any legislature to say they will question that acting appointment. And in any case, let me say this. Nigeria is the only country where
acting appointment.
Yes, acting appointment.
Except that in the case they refer to here, it's not acting appointment.
No, it's substantive chairman. Yeah. Where the EFCC Act, Section 2 or 3, subsection 3 thereof.
I think it's Section 2 or so.
Section 2 or 3, I can't recall. Section 2, subsection 3 says the chairman and members of the commission, other than the ex-official, shall be appointed by the president, subject to confirmation of the Senate. Appointment is to be done.
3, actually.
Appointment is to be done for the chairman, but Section 171 of the Constitution talks about acting appointment, and the president can make acting appointment. If you look at Section 171 of the Constitution, the president can make acting appointment. Say the power to appoint a person to hold or act in the offices to which the action applies, and to remove the person from such office have been vested in the president. And that section talks about
Section 171.
Section 171. And that section talks about extra ministerial department. We have had a cause to discuss this here. But I will not go into detail here But let me say what I want to say here now. The issue of Magu, either to remain or not to remain, cannot even be discussed on the floor of the Senate.
Why?
Two reasons. One, by the provisions of the Nigerian Constitution, Section 4, subsection 8, parliamentary decisions are subject to court jurisdiction.
Okay.
I am aware that
Can you say that again? Parliamentary decisions
of parliament are subject to jurisdiction of court.
Can be reviewed by court.
Can be reviewed by court.
Okay.
Can be pronounced void. Can be upheld.
Okay.
And so, right now as I speak with you, there are 3 litigations in court over Magu, whether he is to be or not to be. And one of them was instituted by my humble self. And the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is a party. They have entered appearance. By their own rules, once a matter is in court,
they ought not to discuss it.
They are not permitted to discuss it. So what they have engaged in is to engage in what His Lordship, Honorable Justice Nnemeka, would call self-help. They are now resorting to self-help to undermine judicial authority, which has been properly seized of the matter in court. So I will advise them to maintain their cool, carry their arsenal and their gun together with the gunpowder.
And carry to the court.
Let's go to court. If the president cannot make if the appointment of head of ministry or extra ministerial department is to be subject to Senate confirmation, the court will decide. And that is why I am of the view that Nigeria is the only country where people who are gross violators of law talks about rule of law when it suits them. Even armed robbers, those who have kidnapped, are now talking about due process and rule of law. But when they have unlawfully kidnap people and put them in the cage and demanding money, they don't remember the rule of law. Is the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria obeying law? Because when you read section 4, subsection 8 of the Constitution, it vests in the court the power, the jurisdiction to decide any parliamentary issues that have been decided. And some Nigerians have gone to court. For reasons of political expedience, I do not know why the executive refused to subject the dispute to judicial resolution. And consistent with the decision of the Honorable Justice Aboki of the Court of Appeal, that in a constitutional matter, any Nigerian who is led to believe that there is an infraction of the Constitution can go to court. 3 Nigerians have gone to court. Therefore, I will most humbly, and as a lawyer, admonish the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to go back to their primary responsibility, which is set out in section 4, and to show the importance that the Constitution accord the National Assembly. Section 4 is very clear on what they are supposed to do. And Nigerians need to be educated on the duties of the National Assembly, because they have no jurisdiction to dabble into issues when I quarrel with my neighbor or quarrel with my friends. Their duty is codified, is constitutionalized, and he said the legislative powers of the Federal Republic of Nigeria shall be vested in the National Assembly for the Federation, which shall consist of the Senate and House of Representatives. The power, subsection 2, the National Assembly shall have power to make laws for peace, order, and good government of the Federation or any part thereof, with respect to any matter included in the exclusive legislative list set out in Part 1 of the second schedule to this Constitution. And there are 68 items in the exclusive legislative list. Subsection 3 also gives them power to make law on matter on concurrent legislative list. There are 30 items there. When you see them in the guise of appropriation, smuggling, borehole, market, those are not matters on exclusive legislative list. Neither can you even find them in concurrent list, because the local government is the one that is saddled with responsibility of doing all these things in the Constitution. Therefore, when a minister makes observation, and then you are summoning the minister to appear, for according to you, he has said something that you did not like. And that takes me to section 88 of the Constitution. Power to summon. Power to call Nigerians when they say something. When do you have this power to say somebody should appear? The Constitution has set out 2 conditions under which you can summon the Nigerians as Parliament under your power of investigation. And that is section 88. Subsection 2. Say the power conferred on the National Assembly under the provision of this section are exercisable only for the purpose of A, makes law with respect to any matter within legislative competence and correct any defects in existing laws. 2, expose corruption, inefficiency, or waste in the execution and administration of laws within the legislative competence and in the disbursement or administration of funds appropriated by it.
But
now,
we see this power exercised judicially
we
to
see
make
this,
pronouncements.
not judicially, whimsically and capriciously, because they have no judicial power. There is no person in the National Assembly, even if it's a
former Chief Justice of Nigeria,
former Chief Justice of Nigeria, that can share with the judiciary the power vested in section 6 of the Constitution. The National Assembly also does not have the jurisdiction and authority and power to share with the executive the constitutional duty vested in the executive in section 5 of the Constitution. In the same vein, the executive or the judiciary cannot share with the power of lawmaking. Therefore, once there is this compartmentalization of powers, as have been set in section 4, 5, and 6, for us to have good order and peace in this country, each arm of government must show respect. And what I see now is that we have chosen out of deliberate constitutional sabotage and exhibiting constitutional insubordination on the part of every organ, minus the judiciary, to show arrogancy to our constitution. And if you look at section 1, subsection 1 of the Constitution, it said this constitution is supreme. The supremacy of the Constitution is being undermined. And therefore, when I see National Assembly, for instance, summoning my learned friend, Governor Raji Fashola, the Honorable Minister of Power, for saying what is obvious, that to me, with respect, is exhibiting a naked usurpation of powers. Because the National Assembly cannot even be a judge in their own cause. There is a theory of law called Nemoda in Keseswa. You can't be a judge in your own cause. If Governor Fashola has said something that you feel is wrong, go to court.
I'm still wondering if the minister appears, for instance, what would they tell him? That he should apologize, or he should go and publish apology in newspaper.
That minister
and that will amount to judicial exercise of judicial powers.
That's what I say. They have chosen now. If you cough wrongly and you mention their name, they say come. If you say what they have done is wrong, they say come. Indeed, there was a point in time that they were saying that the Honorable the Attorney General of the Federation, for exercising the constitutional power vested in him,
to prosecute. To prosecute.
Should appear. Why he should prosecute them? In other words, what they are doing is tantamount to rendering the redundant the other arm of government. And by the way, let me say this, and I want to say it with every sense of modesty. The judicial arm of government is the only arm that I feel in my heart of heart, and which have a defined qualification beyond secondary school or its equivalent. You can't be a judicial officer except you're a lawyer.
Yeah. You can't be a lawyer if you're a school sat.
And you can't be a lawyer if you're a school sat, or a motor garage dropout, or a thugs, or somebody who has the ability to do something other than in due process, and you are hailed. There are filter provisions for you to be a lawyer, and not just a lawyer. To be a judge of high court, you must have practiced law for 10 years. you go through a process. To be a Chief Justice of Nigeria is not a small means achievement. It's not like being either a senator or being a Senate president or Speaker of House of Representatives. There are defined qualifications. Yeah. And these are the arms of government that are trained technicians and experts, that disputes of this kind are reserved to be settled by them. Then you now say, look, Babatude Fashola, come. Why should you say what you say? Acting President Oshibanjo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, come. We will remove you. Why should you say what you have said? If you feel aggrieved by what the acting president said, go to court. If you feel aggrieved by what the Senate is doing, rather than this cat and mouse game, and Nigerians are the worst for it, both the executive and the legislature are playing on collective intelligence of Nigerian people. Because how does I have rejected Magu or not rejecting Magu bring food to our table? If you look at Section 15 of the Constitution, it is the duties and responsibility of the state to eradicate corruption in all forms. Are we saying that Magu is not doing well, or that is stepping on shoes of persons and they don't want him to continue to step on the shoes? Nigeria should ask questions. I concede that Magu is not the only Nigerians, but do you change a winning team? And the bane of our football is that, we play federal character. When we have mathematical Degbami, Chairman Chuku, and the rest, you can predict how many goals Nigeria will score Algeria or Tunisia. But today, all manner of things are in our football. That's what is coming to our body politics. We are not putting the round peg in the round hole. We say we must do federal character. I'm not saying federal character is wrong, but even within the geographical domain of federal character, there are people of peccable character, peccable integrity, people who can die for this country. But how many people are prepared to die for this country who are presently in government, either in the legislature or in the executive?
Let's conceptualize this now. From where we started, your point on the first issue is that the executive is dead wrong by
completely dead wrong
by holding hostage the nation as regards the issue of ministers that have been screened and cleared.
I agree.
The acting president has all the powers to swear them in.
The acting president has a constitutional duty to
swear
do
them
it.
in.
And if he's not doing so, I will call on the two states. They should go to court to command the acting president to do.
Or before then, those are the issues on which the Senate can also pass resolution.
The Senate will serve them. Now you are breaching the Constitution, because by the constitutional provision,
every state
must have a minister. We have cleared the minister. You have not sworn them in. They are not performing any duty. They are roaming the street. Swear them in. Otherwise, we'll give you notice of impeachment. That's a ground.
If they do that, Nigerians will probably clap for them.
I will be one of the persons to carry placard on the street to say they are doing their job. Because their duty also is to make law for good order and good government, and to respect the laws, the Nigerian Constitution. The Nigerian Constitution says you cannot begin to perform the functions of your office as a minister, except you are sworn in, you take the oath of office and oath of allegiance. And because the oath of allegiance, and then you declare your assets. These people are just roaming the street.
Okay. We settled that one.
So my advice, is that
should be to the acting president.
The Kogi state government, the Gombe state government, the senator from there, the House of Representative members from there should make the executive to comply. Otherwise, the executive should be shown the way out.
Okay, on that issue. The next one to it has to do with the issue of interpretation of Section 171. The Senate is insisting that
I want to run away from it. Why?
Because it's in court.
It's in court. Okay. Two.
No, that's the point I actually wanted to make, which is that the executive is giving his own interpretation of that section. The legislature is giving his own interpretation.
And three Nigerians.
The legislature, therefore, cannot insist that his own interpretation is superior to that of the executive.
Neither should the executive.
He sees that his own interpretation is also superior.
And then for the executive, I can see that because they believe that their interpretation may not be the correct one, they decided to send some nominations to the National Assembly. And then the National Assembly, in gross violation of Constitution and their duty, which they say they have to perform.
Sworn to perform.
Sworn to perform. Now decided to say, look, because we have taken a certain decision and we have not obeyed, we will not do our duty. That to me constitutes a gross constitutional insubordination. Because they have
on the part of
the National Assembly to say we will not do our job because a particular thing we have done which you did not respect must be done, otherwise we will not do it. They are not trade unions. The National Assembly is not a trade union
or IPOP
or Arewa Youth or IPOP or any of these. They are responsible Nigerians elected by Nigerian people to perform certain legislative duties that are vested in them by the Constitution. So since there is a disagreement and 3 Nigerians have gone to court, my admonition is that the parties, both sides,
that issue should be kept in the cooler.
They should allow the court to do its job.
The judiciary speaks.
Yes, because these are the people trained to do the job. And once there's a dispute, and I know that the Supreme Court said, once a dispute has arisen between government and individual, between authority and other persons, and the dispute has been referred to court, none of the parties should do anything in the nature of self-help to undermine the authority of the court. And as a minister in the temple of justice, I owe a duty to advise both the executive and the legislature to allow a judicial course to take its full benefits. Okay.
You alluded to the issue of the power of the legislature to summon people.
Yes.
A lot of people have said that the power to summon is not a power exercisable at large. That, like you said, there are conditions for it. And that it is only limited to public officers when you are performing certain responsibilities. It is you can't summon a private person, for instance, who has no role to play in government, is not in charge of powers and all of that. How true is that? And the code section, let me see, section 88.
Section 88
of the Constitution.
Section 88
yes.
of the Constitution.
Yes.
Is that subject to the provisions of this Constitution. Now, when the word subject to is used, it means it's not absolute.
Yes.
That means this section of the law.
Yes. It's actually 89. 89.
No, let's start from 88.
Okay.
Subject to the provision of this section, each House of National Assembly shall have power to, by resolution published in its journal or in the official gazette of the government of the nation, to direct or cause to be directed investigation into any matter or things with respect to which it has power to make laws.
Okay.
2, to conduct the conduct of affairs of any person, authority, ministry, or government department charged or intended to be charged with the duty of responsibility for executing or administering law enacted by the National Assembly. Disbursing or administering money appropriated or to be appropriated by the National Assembly. Now, that is the general power. Subsection 2.
And it's limited to persons that have responsibility to do with it.
With
so
the
such
law,
persons must be in government, naturally.
If government decides to set up ad hoc committee, which has no back of law, there is no law. For instance, government decides to set up to say AIT needs some assistance. Let Chibenga be the one to see what we can do. In its, there's no law that compels passed by National Assembly under which government wants to do this. But as part of its social responsibility, then if you make a comment, where is the power of National Assembly to summon you? Under the Constitution. But that's not even the limiting force. Look at subsection 2. You can only be summoned under 2 circumstances. 1, when to enable them make law with respect to any matter within the legislative competence and correct any defect in existing law. 2, to expose corruption, inefficiency, or waste in execution or administration of law within its legislative competence. And the legislative competence of the National Assembly is limited to the exclusive list, which contain 68 items, and concurrent list, which contain 30 items. So, when a private citizen, therefore, cough wrongly, and you want to summon him because he says something that you are not in agreement with. That to me is an abuse of power. And whimsical exercise of legislative power is not part of what the Constitution intended in Section 4. So the whimsical and capricious exercise of power, or showing off that I'm big, nobody should control me, and my word is Lord, and nobody can challenge what I say, is reminiscence of dictatorship, which has no place in democratic experimentation that we are doing. And what you are seeing tells much what you see during election. That is why you cannot find internal democracy, because most Nigerians don't want their power challenged. And that is why you see now even decisions of Supreme Court coming out, we say, look, you force yourself into power wrongly, return the salaries and allowances that you have collected. And I will urge the Supreme Court to go further. Okay. It is not enough to say return. Give timetable for the people to bring the money and show evidence to you
that they have paid.
They have paid. If they fail to show evidence, there is a provision in our law called judgment summon, where you send a judgment debtor to prison until he finds money to pay. If he cannot pay, he remains in prison. There's the provisions like that. In our laws, we must use law to remedy the social malaise that we have in this country. We are not doing so. And I'm pained that Nigerians are living in abject poverty, in squalors, and people are sitting somewhere with our money, playing on our intelligence, and making jest of the national asset we have in the office of the acting president. That should not be encouraged by Nigerians.
Okay, the one that brought in Fashola has to do with the power of the National Assembly for appropriation.
Yes.
The National Assembly has continued to maintain that under Section 80 of the Constitution, they hold the power of the purse. But they forget that there's a Section 81 that follows 80, which is about how the appropriation process should start and end. And that Section 81 says the executive shall put the estimates together and bring it to the legislature for the purposes of appropriation, which is that power for appropriation, which is found in 80. Can they continue to read Section 80 and forget that there's Section 81? And if the National Assembly, like they are saying, that the appropriation bill is just like any other bill, they can do anything with it, they can pieces it, they can change it completely, doesn't that make nonsense of the power of the executive to be the one to put the proposal together in the first place? Because they are the ones in charge of all the projects. They are the ones in charge of all the ministries that are in charge of running of government.
See, with respect to the National Assembly, I think with all respect to them, and I mean no harm, and I respect them, I think they are being gluttonous in power. Number one, it is contrary to natural justice, equity, and good conscience for you to put in a budget a project not proposed by the executive.
And then approve
it will tantamount to you proposing a budget to yourself and approve for yourself. That itself cannot be correct. I think what they have failed to do, and which they are ashamed of doing, is to meet the executive even before at the stage of budget preparation and say, look, my constituency needs this, my constituency needs this. How do we synergize so that this can be in the budget? That kind of a thing is done underground. I do not concede, and I will not concede until there is a judicial determination that the National Assembly, in the guise of its power under Section 80, can proceed to include a budget, in the budget estimate, projects not put by the executive. I concede that they can reduce, but to add, when they are not revenue earning department or government, which revenue does the National Assembly earn for government? So, it is not in tandem with respect for them to do so. Again, the legislature and the executive are also playing on our intelligence. Otherwise, I expect that the executive that is aggrieved by this kind of legislative infraction of the Constitution should approach the Supreme Court for interpretation, whether or not, in the guise of appropriation, the National Assembly has the power to smuggle in projects not proposed under Section 81. And even if they so have, whether indeed they can propose a project not covered by the exclusive legislative list or concurrent list, and be bringing in projects that are in residual list, which they have no legislative competence to make law on.
Again, there's also a law made by themselves which they also flouted,
So,
which is the Public Procurement Act, which means projects must have gone through some processes before you put it as a project to be executed by government.
So, these are issues that in a constitutional democracy, the executive and the legislature who are flexing these muscles, because when two elephants are fighting, the Nigerian people that are the grasses are the ones suffering. And when I say Nigerian people, not the people that are chauffeur driven, or those people who blowing siren and asking some of us to leave road, or whose house is always 24/7 guided by taxpayers' money, by soldiers and fiercely looking policemen and women. I'm talking about you and I that goes to Wuse market, that go to Alaba market, that goes to Ega market to buy okwe and ogbono.
What is okwe?
The locust beans.
Oh, okay.
So, all I'm struggling to say here is that let the executive and the legislature take their dispute to the experts, and that is the judiciary, and they must have confidence in the judiciary to make pronouncement. Before now, there was this issue of National Industrial Court. Just last week, the Supreme Court settled the point, and we are at home with it.
Everybody now knows that decisions from the National Industrial Court can go to the Court of Appeal.
Before, where the court say, look, our decision is final. We are Supreme Court of ourselves. But now the Supreme Court say, no, you are not Supreme Court. You have an elder brother who can look at the disagreement you have with.
And that elder brother also has another elder brother.
So, if we follow our laws and our constitution, this kind of heating up the politics when Nigerians are finding it difficult to feed will not be there.
In all of these, the judiciary cannot say, in the name of being an activist judiciary, just jump into the fray without the judiciary being involved.
Somebody must activate the jurisdiction of the judiciary. Judiciary is not an armed sentry to look for cases and bring to itself. It's not like National Assembly or Executive that looks for what they want to say
it's argued that the Supreme Court sometimes could also act as a policy court.
No, a policy court, yes, that is true. Supreme Court is a court of policy, it's a court of law. Yeah. And it's
a court of equity.
It's a court of equity.
Isn't there within these three areas?
In the court of equity, there must be a customer who comes to meet equity. Okay. Before equity can dispense justice to that customer. So you don't say, because I'm an equitable court or I'm a court of policy, I'm seeing two of you fight. Supreme Court is not a Mogo Park that will be looking for the source of River Niger for it to be infested with mosquito bite. No. Supreme Court and all Nigerian courts must be approached, and that is why I call on Nigerians who are led to believe what is going on not correct to file suit in court.
Okay, perhaps one other critical issue that time didn't permit us to put on the template has to do with the opinion of the senators as well on the issue of recall. Their belief is that recall is just there in the Constitution for decoration, and whoever is dissatisfied with any of them in the National Assembly should just wait for 4 years and then vote them out. Doesn't that defeat the essence of putting recall in the Constitution?
Again,
10 seconds.
Again, that one, I will not say anything because I understand Senator Dino Melai had gone to court. I understand APC had gone to court. I am not here to support the other party.
No, we're looking at the principle of recall.
The principle of recall is there. Okay. But if a man who is to be recalled or the people in the constituency feel that the procedural steps will not be followed, they have the right to go to court. Mark you, impeachment before was said not to be justiciable.
Yeah, but it is now.
But the Supreme Court said, look, before you can say so impeachment is not justiciable, you must show to have followed the laid down procedures in the Constitution. So a Nigerian who is led to believe that a procedure set down for a recall is not followed has the right to go to court.
All right, let's leave it there. Barrister Okutepa.
I prefer to be called Mr.
Okay, no barrister.
No.
Okay, Mr. Jibrin SAN. That's why you should be a chief now, so that it's easier for me.
I'm a prince.
That means two of us. Princes are not chiefs.
I inherit the kingdom.
Yes, a prince can be a king, but a chief will forever be a chief. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Jibrin Okutepa is a senior advocate of Nigeria as well. Thank you so much for making our day. I appreciate your time, and I'm sure our viewers too have been the better for all of this. Thank you too for investing your time with us. God willing, our paths will cross again tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of the day. Do stay out of trouble.